I'm Carla Cannon, and I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how my kids and I studied Canada this past year. I had been wanting to do a Canadian unit study for a while, and I think the easiest part of unit studies is picking what you want to do. The hardest part for me, especially in the beginning, is taking a huge topic such as Canada and breaking it down into manageable bite-sized pieces that will make sense, that I can plan for. And so that was my biggest hang-up. I've been thinking about it for a while. I thought, oh gosh, Canada, like, how are we gonna break this down and make this interesting for the kids but not be too much? I did it last year with my 6-year-old son who was in 1st grade and my daughter who was 9 in 4th grade. So this is what we did last year. And sometimes it's better to tell what you did because then you can say what actually worked and didn't work versus what you're planning to do. Everything's much easier in the planning stage. But anyway, so Canada, I was like, okay, let's learn about Canada. And I didn't even know where to start. And so I wanted to keep it simple, and I found online, it's the Canadian Homeschooler. And I want to just say up front that this was all inspired by her blog, by her unit that we purchased, and these are all her ideas that I just implemented and put our own twist on. So I don't want to take credit for coming up with this because I purchased it for a mere $10, and then we just worked our way through her ideas, which was fabulous because I like finding great resources, and I'm not really one to reinvent the wheel other than just tweaking it to make it work for our family. So anyways, I found online, and like I said, it was I think only right around $10, and it was by the Canadian Homeschooler, and it was the Canadian Adventure, an interactive virtual trip across Canada. And that kind of appealed to me, and you can see down here, CanadianHomeschooler.com. I'll put a link for that in the bottom here of the video. But what kind of appealed to me is when I was a kid, we had gone across Canada as a family, and we actually tented in a tent with myself, my parents, and my 3 siblings, one of whom was just a little bitty baby, only a couple months old. We drove all the way across Canada and tent camped for 52 nights. So the idea of doing a virtual trip across Canada was appealing to me. Number one, because then I don't actually have to tent camp as an adult with children. I think my parents were heroes, and I loved it as a kid, but definitely couldn't recreate that as an adult. So I thought, oh, okay, well, we could do this virtually from our own home. I like that idea. So what's cool about this unit is I only printed off the first page. It's actually a PDF download, and I didn't even end up printing it. I just used it from my computer because the fantastic part about this unit is the lady who compiled it had put tons of work into finding links, interactive videos, pictures for every province. And so that was great because then for each province we would use, and it was based off of this book. So we did purchase this book. It was a easy find on Amazon.ca. It's Hey Canada, and it's the story of this grandmother and her 2 grandchildren and their road trip across Canada. So I was like, oh, perfect, okay. So anyways, the unit study is based off of this book, and it takes you through it, tells you what pages to read. This isn't a big book. This is a small book, so it definitely needed a little bit of supplementing for each of the provinces, but it was a great way to kind of introduce each province, give us kind of this story of, okay, we're going across Canada, we're going to see all these sites, and it was fun because I kind of like the idea of this gran and her 2 grandchildren. So anyways, for each province, they start over on the East Coast, so they start in Newfoundland and Labrador, and so for each province, you don't get tons of information, but it's enough as kind of, I used it as our jumping off point. So you have those 2 pages and just one more on Newfoundland and Labrador. So it was a great place for us to jump off and kind of introduce it. It talks about some key points. And so we used that, and then within the unit that I bought, it had links. It had virtual tours, additional information, and lots of videos you could click on. And the best part of some of those videos is I'd click on one and it would be good, and then often, as you know, on YouTube, other ones will pop up that are similar to it. So I felt like we got to really see a lot of the provinces just from home. And so I think the kids really like that, because I think it just took our study to a whole new dimension as opposed to just reading about it. So for each province, we would read, the little bit in here, we'd click on the links. And then I had purchased this set from Scholastic, and it is great. They are the Canada Close-Up. And once again, I just got those, I think I just got them on Amazon.ca as well. So, and each book in and of itself isn't a huge one, but it is more than, for the age group that I did it with, more than enough information. We did not need more information than was in these books. So we'd use that as a starting off point, and then for digging a little bit deeper about each province, we read these. And this is a lot more information, and I wanted to say that we did not read every word of these. We kind of picked and chose what fit what I was looking for each province. So that, is just a little peek into these. And so I thought, okay, so we're gonna take this virtual trip across Canada, but even then I felt like I needed to break it down into kind of an area of focus for each province, because it's still pretty broad. So what I kind of did that worked well for me was, for each province, I broke it up into kind of 4 categories. I wanted, and it worked really well using these books for that. The first category that I wanted to cover with the kids was the geography and landscape of the province. So what did it look like there? And videos for that were incredible. We just go online, find tourism videos, use the videos links in the unit we downloaded. And it was so fun. And I'd often just put those on, maybe when we were eating or something, because it was lots of scenery, but they could watch it, they're eating their lunch, I just prop it up on our iPad, and they were like, wow, that's beautiful, look at Nova Scotia, look at all the ocean. But it was just enough to kind of whet their interest. And then we talked a lot about, landforms, different types. We talked, mountains, prairies, climate, those were all kind of the vocabulary of things that we worked into that geography. And so then they kind of got a really good sense of, okay, what is the land like in each of the provinces? So we did that for the province. We did a little bit of history for each province, because there was a little chapter in the books on that. It was something that we just touched on very, very lightly, and most specifically, we generally talked about, early explorers and settlers, and that was as far as we went, because I wanted to keep our history separate from learning about the provinces. It was too much in my mind for us to tackle at one time. So just a little bit of history. So we did our geography, a little background history lightly, and then we talked about culture, which tied in with, a little bit of the history. So for example, in Nova Scotia, there is a really strong Scottish presence, as well as some of the Acadians, the French early settlers. So, that was kind of how we touched on culture. We talked about, were there any typical foods that were common in that province? Things like that, like they have a lot of Scottish and Highland dancing in Nova Scotia. And so that was kind of what we touched on for culture. And so after the culture, then the last kind of chapter in the book here, or second to last, talks about the industry for the province. And I thought that was great. That's just a good word for the kids to know. Industry. What is industry? What does that mean? What are different types of industries? And it was so closely tied with the geography of all the provinces. So, there's a lot of fishing. Well, obviously for provinces like Manitoba or Saskatchewan, fishing isn't a big industry, but for Nova Scotia it is. So those were kind of the categories that we learned about. And then I wanted the last piece of the puzzle for our unit study is I wanted to have a collaborative project that the kids and I did together. This was not something they went and did by themselves. If you're looking for some kind of a unit study where the kids just go and work completely independently, this is not it. It was very mummy, hands-on intensive, but I was okay with that because that's what I wanted. So we did our reading together during our morning time reading, and then this made up a huge part of the kids' language arts. And so we ended up making, and I got the idea from the from the unit, we made a big scrapbook just like we had been to each of the provinces. So we did, like I said, this was from the unit study idea. And so for each province, we did several pages in we had our cover here, and we did a scrapbook. And I had purchased a game from the Canadian Homeschooler, kind of like a matching game, and this is where I got all the titles. In it, it had like the flower, the flag, the shape of the province, so that was a nice little $2, $3 thing that we bought. And then I printed off pictures online. It was a little ink intensive, but I bought a whole bunch of ink, and that was our financial investment for the unit study because the book and the unit itself were so cheap. So that's how I looked at it. So anyways, so for each thing we print things off, and this was, obviously more geography related. And then my 4th grader would do writing, and it was writing that we worked on together. We kind of brainstormed and we did it as a team because this was something that we wanted to be her best writing. It was something that either, she would copy or we'd work on writing out together so that she had good punctuation and good spelling and grammar and was interesting to read as well. So that was something. And then for my little guy who was just in 1st grade, just at the beginning of the year, he did his as copy work. And so he said there, I want to cliff dive, because that was a big thing in Nova Scotia. And so that was our geography portion of it. And it wasn't, the kids could read and understand so much more than they're able to produce. But it was we did just enough that it was helping them remember what we learned, but it wasn't overwhelming. And so, for example, my daughter said, Nova Scotia means New Scotland. It looks a lot like Scotland with its high and lowlands, steep cliffs, and rocky shores and beaches. You are always near the ocean in Nova Scotia. So, we didn't write a 5-page report here. So that was kind of our geography section. Then this is what we had done for our culture section. She had just dictated to me and I typed it up because, it can get to be too much, so we had to keep moving. And she wrote here about the lighthouses in Nova Scotia. And then these were some pictures we printed off for the industry section. And my son had just copied, we read a lot about it, but the actual writing in our book was fishing, farming, and shipbuilding are important jobs in Nova Scotia. That was our industry section. Okay, so, just keeping it really manageable. So then we did that for Nova Scotia, and we didn't do this for most of the provinces, but we kind of got carried away a little bit with all the history there of the early settlers and the Acadians. So we did do a little section on history, but we didn't do this, I don't think, for any other provinces. So, you always have more energy at the beginning of a unit study. So we had a little history section on that one. And then we did do for every province, and there's links in the downloadable unit to these pages by Crayola. And we talked a little bit about the flag, and there's information on the website that I printed it from on it, the flag, the flower, and the provincial bird. So those were nice. So each entry for each province was about, let me see, 2, 4, 6 pages. We averaged about 6 pages, including these ones that we colored. For a couple of the smaller provinces, we did a little less, but that was the gist. And then we just repeated that for each province. But I think having those 4 categories were super helpful for me because otherwise it's overwhelming. So when I get to a new province and I was thinking about what we're going to talk about, I just narrowed it down to those 4 things, geography, history, culture, and then some of the industries. And that helped us focus it in a little bit. So yeah, that was what we did for our big social studies. We did about 1 province a month, sometimes 2, sometimes not, just depending on the month. But we really took our time with it, and then we did it all through last year. And that worked out really well for us. You could do it faster, slower, depending on what works for you. And it was also really a huge part of our language arts as well. Of course, we had other language arts things that we did. You know, for Naomi did daily grams, and my son was just learning how to read, so he had lots of phonics instructions. So we did have lots of things like that outside of this, but as far as actually producing work, this was a huge part of it. My son's copy work was for our Canada book. My daughter's, writing, it's kind of like little mini reports. This was all for our book. And so it's been, we made a huge book. We did this for every province, and what a neat portfolio of their work over the course of the year. And it was just fun, and they had fun cutting out the pictures and gluing them down and putting it together. So it was definitely a fun thing. It was a lot of work for me, but I enjoy it, so it worked well for us. But anyways, so that's how we broke it down, and I am going to do another video on how we're approaching history, because it worked really well for us to split the two things up. So then, now that the kids had a really good idea of all the provinces, what it's like there, a tiny bit of the background of them, then we've done history as a separate thing, which we're working on right now. And splitting it up that way for me, I think, has made it more clear for the kids, and it's neat to revisit the provinces that we learned about through history. The other thing, we used a couple other things that one could have, but you wouldn't need. I didn't get it towards till the end of our unit study, but I wish I had it right at the beginning. This is really nice, this Scholastic Atlas to Canada. It's got just, little basic information and then information on each of the provinces. So I think this would have been a nice addition a little bit earlier into our unit. You wouldn't have to have it, but it had, good information, but not too much. And then the other thing that we did was we listened to Michael Mitchell a lot. We like Michael Mitchell anyways. If you're not familiar with him, he is a Canadian children's singer. He's got he's got 3 great CDs. Canada is for Kids Volume 1. There's the other ones. So yeah, Michael Mitchell, fantastic, all about symbols of Canada and you name it, different provinces. Are built into his CDs, so that was really fun. We listened to those in the car, not formally, but we just for fun. And then this is the book with all the lyrics and music, which is nice to have. So that was a nice addition. I had some puzzles, a few different ones, so that was kind of a fun thing to have. And the other thing I bought this and I did not use it. But I think if you had maybe a little bit older kids or kids who actually like to draw, it could be a lot more fun. I think I'll use it when mine are older. But we got this, it's the Draw Canada, and they have them for different continents, but they're really a neat book. And it's step-by-step, shows you, you do a little tiny bit each day, and by the end of the year, you've drawn Canada. So at the beginning, you just draw this little line. That would be 1 day's worth of drawing. This is the United States, so you wouldn't have that. So you're doing kind of one little section at a time. I love the idea, but my kids don't love art, and so it didn't really fly in our house, but I think maybe when they're a little bit older it would be fun. So hopefully you have some ideas. This is, I think, a fun way to break it down and to have a neat keepsake. I think when you have multiple ages in your homeschool, doing a collaborative project is the way to go. The more you can do together, read together, all work on your book together, I think the more successful it is. So I hope you're inspired, and it's a great year to do Canada with the 150th birthday this year. So yay Canada, and I hope you have fun learning about it. Bye.